State, excuse me. So next I'd like to introduce to you, both of them will come speak for a few minutes, Derick and Erick. Thank you.
Thank you. Unlike my Governor McCall, I need a few notes every time I'm speaking, so I have some notes. I also want to say it's nice to see Mr. Hanna here. I had the opportunity to be in his county, in Hanna County at Boyd State, so it's really good to see you here. I first want to start off by thanking the American Legion and the commissioners and everybody involved and all you veterans for giving me and my brother the opportunity to participate in something like this. Coming from a small city, coming from a small family, and just having that opportunity to go to Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and to participate in the political process and do some of the things we got to do, I think is amazing. We were asked to speak on our experiences at Boys Nation, so just a little bit, I'll tell you exactly what happened. At Boyd State, I had the opportunity to serve under our governor as lieutenant governor, had the opportunity to preside over the Senate. Never in my lifetime did I ever think I would be able to sit where Lieutenant Governor Ren Rockefeller had the opportunity to sit. I went to Boys Nation, and my brother ran for Secretary of the Senate. I think he came in like 3rd or 4th place. I had the opportunity to run for Vice President. I got my party nomination, and then lost to South Carolina in the general election. But I still think it was an amazing opportunity just to participate and do some of those things that we had to do. We also had the opportunity to go to the World War II Memorial and to the Arlington Cemetery. And in my opinion, that brought back it gave me a sense of pride, a sense of care, and a sense of, I guess, pride, just to know that I'm from America, I'm a part of America, and it just made me feel glad to be a part of a nation as great as this. And for you guys, and for you veterans, I thank you so much for putting your life on the line to make this nation truly the best nation in the world. I thank you so much for that. One thing that we were really taught at Boys Nation was that regardless if you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, Green Party, whatever you're a part of, there's one thing that's consistent with everybody, and that's that you're an American. And I think that's one thing that the government has forgotten about. I think that's one thing that politicians have forgotten about, is that this is America, and we need to do things and that the elected officials, the representatives, the politicians should be doing things that will benefit America, not just a political party, not just themselves, but this country. So being there and being able to walk through that cemetery and see all the lives that had gone overseas and to serve was just amazing. For me, going to Boys Nation, I think it truly strengthened my desire to want to serve in a political office. I do one day aspire to be the governor of this state. Sorry, John. But I do aspire to be governor of Arkansas, and then maybe even take that to a national level to become a senator or whatever. But I think for me, as I talked to a lot of the other Boys Nation senators from across the country, I roomed with a guy from Georgia, Thomas Izzo, and one night we talked about how if we could just take over that White House for one day, if we could take over the Senate chambers and the House chambers for one day, what a change there would be. But one thing we came to realize was that on some issues we don't agree wholeheartedly with the Democratic view or the Republican view, but we do understand that it doesn't take a large body to change something. I want to leave you with one quote from Mahatma Gandhi. He once said that a small body of determined spirits with an unquenchable faith in their mission can alter the course of history. I firmly believe in that, and I firmly believe in the message that the American Legion promotes, and I thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. God bless you. I'm going to try and follow my brother. Of course, I'm Erick Daly, and I was the second senator elected to Boys Nation. As my brother said, the experience was amazing. We debated different pieces of legislation. I know Derick took legislation on outsourcing and the elimination of outsourcing and keeping our jobs in America where they belong. I took legislation repealing national security letters, those letters that the government feel they can place on us to seize our belongings and tap into our phone calls. And so that was the pieces of legislation I took. Both of us, the presentation we made was pretty decent, and so the legislation didn't pass, but at least we got our thoughts and our opinions out there to those that were at Boys Nation. Also, at Boys Nation, we were able to go and see our respective senators and representatives, and Derick and I went to the office of Mark Pryor and Blanche Lincoln, and of course they were happy to see us there, happy to see some other Arkansans in Washington, D.C., because that doesn't happen always. And of course we were from the same city as Blanche Lincoln, Little Rock, and of course she has twins too, so there was some coincidence there. But one thing she did talk to us about was the representation she had in Washington, D.C., and what she does for us. And it amazed me that many of the senators there told us that they didn't have time to talk to the Boys Nation senators because they had other obligations. But as it turned out, the Arkansas senators and representatives did take time out to speak to us and actually have a one-on-one conversation with us about what they do there in Washington, D.C. Mark Pryor actually took us to lunch with the other Girls Nation senators, and we talked about politics and we talked about government and how we could get involved. And so I applaud the Arkansas senators and representatives in Washington, D.C. for actually making it enough of us to come out and help us and support us in our endeavors. So I think that's one thing we can be proud of, is that we did elect senators and representatives who do care and who actually care about the young people of Arkansas. In addition to that, I know I'm supposed to talk about what it actually meant to me. One thing that I took away from Boys Nation is how we must remain open-minded. Although we all have different ideologies, we have different thought processes, we do different things, we go different places, but we must remain open-minded. I don't believe the same way Derick believes. He doesn't believe the same way I believe, but I can come to that. We can come to a conclusion that we can respect one another's beliefs and do what's better for the common good. And as my brother was talking, he said that's one thing politics has definitely done away with, and that's doing what's best for the majority, not the minority. Let's not do what's best for the Republican Party. Let's do what's best for everyone and what the majority actually wants. And so we took that away from Boys Nation, being open-minded, being able to respect one another's opinions, being able to disagree agreeably, if that makes sense, be able to not be hostile and be confrontational when we discuss our different opinions, but be open-minded and remain that way. I think that's one of the great things about America. We are a democracy, and we're all equal. No matter where we come from, no matter what we do, no matter what we say, we're equal, and we have those rights as laid out in the Constitution of the United States. In addition to that, Derick and I feel that we did represent the state of Arkansas in a pretty good way. Coming from a boys state of 639, I believe, it was one of the largest in the country, and so I commend the Commission of Boys State for having such a prosperous and successful 2006 Boys State. We talked to other senators from other states, and they had 10 and 12 delegates to Boys State, and so we were just somewhat astonished about that. We came from a really large Boys State. We feel we represented pretty well. We thank 2006 Boys State delegates for electing us to that position, to think it not robbery to send us to Washington, D.C. and represent them and to get their thoughts out there. We weren't going to represent ourselves. Let that be known. We went to represent the state of Arkansas, and we went to represent what the Boys Staters of 2006 Arkansas, what they actually thought. And so we did that, and we did pretty well. Also, one of the lasting impressions there at Boys Nation was the emphasis of patriotism and the emphasis of nationalism, and how we should, no matter what's going on, support our country. Although we don't agree with the war of the Iraqi war, that's a hot topic, we ought to support our government, and we ought to support the leaders of America, no matter what they do. In addition to that, we also talked about the concept of respect for the country. I know, I think it was Mr. Hanna who talked about having a flag in every classroom in public schools. That's one thing we do need to push that. We need to emphasize the concept of respect for our country. Many people have lost their lives for our country, so that we could have these rights that we share today. I know from a personal experience, I have a brother who's in Afghanistan at this time, and so he's sacrificing his life for us to share and have those rights that we have at this time. And so we ought to respect the United States just because it's the United States. we ought to respect that. One last point I would like to say, the famous quotation, diversity is our strength and unity is our goal. That's one thing both me and my brother hold dear. We're all diverse. As I stated before, we all have different ideologies, we think differently, and we do different things. But that's our strength. We must embrace diversity, and we must push toward unity. We must, in whatever we do, we must be unified in it. I know today in politics there's so much discussion and discrepancy about different political affiliations and what they believe. But one thing we ought to do is be unified in our attempts to secure our nation and to do those things that are best for the American people. So as I journey and continue my high school career and hopefully go on to college, wherever that may be, I don't know now, I will definitely take the spirit of Boys Nation and the spirit of Boys Nation with me, and that spirit being of scholarship, citizenship, and leadership. So thank you for your time.